The smell of fancy cologne and judgment filled the air at La Maison, my father's favorite upscale restaurant. That's where he insisted on holding his 60th birthday dinner. Everything about the place was elegant: white tablecloths, crystal glasses, quiet piano music in the background. I sat quietly at the end of the long table, wearing a simple navy blazer I bought from a department store. I didn't need anything flashy, but that didn't stop my sister Amanda from staring at me disapprovingly. "You could have at least tried to dress for the occasion, James," she said while adjusting her expensive designer dress. "It's Dad's birthday," I replied with a calm smile, sipping my water. Her words didn't bother me anymore, not after everything I'd been through. It had been 5 years since I walked away from the family investment firm, 5 years of quietly building something of my own. In secret, to them, I was still the family disappointment. My brother Michael arrived late, as usual, but no one seemed to care. He was the golden boy. He had taken my place at Kingston Investment Partners after I left. He kissed Mom on the cheek, gave Dad a firm pat on the back, then turned to me with that smug grin he always wore. "Well, if it isn't the janitor," he said loudly, making sure everyone around us could hear. "Still cleaning offices at night, little brother?" I looked at him calmly. "Building maintenance supervisor," I said. Not that it made a difference. They'd already created their own version of my life. Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable but too polite to say anything. "Let's order, shall we?" The waiter brought menus wrapped in leather. I could feel Mom looking at me as I scanned the prices. She probably thought I was worried about whether I could afford anything on the menu. "Order whatever you like, James," she said gently. "It's on us." Michael chuckled into his wine glass. "When is it not?" I thought of the contracts waiting in my office, the real estate deals set to close tomorrow, the major announcement scheduled to air in just a few minutes, but I stayed quiet and ordered the cheapest pasta on the menu. Sometimes, it's better to let people underestimate you, just a little longer. Everyone talked like I wasn't even there. Dad spoke about his latest business deals. Michael bragged about his new Mercedes. Amanda went on about some fancy charity event she helped organize. Mom tried to include me with awkward questions about my work, but her concerns sounded more like pity than interest. "You know," Michael said as he cut into his steak, "there's still a spot open in compliance at the firm, if you're done playing around." I stirred my pasta slowly. "Thanks, but I'm happy where I am." "Happy?" Amanda raised an eyebrow. "You live in a small apartment and work nights. That's not happiness, that's giving up." "Speaking of that," Mom added, trying to change the subject, "have you thought about going back to school, maybe finish your MBA?" I almost laughed. I'd learned more in the past 5 years than any classroom ever taught me. I learned from watching buildings being cleaned, fixed, rented, and sold. I built my success from the ground up, with people who respected effort, not last names. "I'm learning enough," I said. Michael scoffed. "Learning how to mop floors and screw in light bulbs? Real estate is about power and vision, things you clearly don't understand." If only he knew that the building we were sitting in, I owned it, quietly, through a holding company. My fingerprints were all over the city, just not where they were looking. "Maybe," I said, taking another bite. Dad sighed, disappointed. "James, we're just worried about you. You were top of your class. You were supposed to be a partner. You had it all lined up, and then you threw it away to, what, clean floors?" "Building maintenance supervisor," I repeated, more from habit than anything else. "Same thing," Michael snapped. "You're cleaning up after people who actually matter." I glanced at my watch. 7:58 p.m., 2 minutes. Mom reached for my hand. "It's not too late, James, you can still come back, be part of the family again." Suddenly, the restaurant's music stopped. The TV screen above the bar turned on. Usually, it played sports, but now it was the evening news. The anchor's voice echoed, "Breaking news. In the biggest real estate story of the year, a company called Summit Horizon has just announced ownership of 12 major downtown properties, including..." My family's heads all turned to the screen. They watched as the names of buildings they knew scrolled past, each worth hundreds of millions, each quietly purchased under their noses over the last 5 years. Michael pulled out his phone, looking panicked. "Who is Summit Horizon? How did we miss this?" Then came the real shocker. The anchor continued, "And the man behind Summit Horizon, CEO James Kingston, who reportedly built the billion-dollar company while working as a building maintenance supervisor." Silence fell across the table. They all stared at me. I wiped my mouth with a napkin and smiled slightly. Anyone want dessert? I own the restaurant, so it's on me. Michael's face twisted in disbelief. All those nights they mocked me, all the dinners where I sat ignored, every moment had led to this. Dad finally spoke, his voice shaky. James. I stood and adjusted my simple blazer. I've got an early meeting tomorrow. We're buying another building, actually, the same one your firm's been chasing for months. I walked slowly toward the exit, then stopped at the host's stand. The Kingston party's bill is on me, I told the maitre d' loudly, making sure they heard. Let them have anything they want for dessert. After all, I turned and looked back at their stunned faces. Family takes care of family, right? And with that, I walked out of La Maison, not as the family disappointment, but as the man who quietly built a legacy while no one was watching. My father called a sudden meeting, not a friendly check-in or a casual chat, but the kind of serious, private video call that meant business. I could already tell from his expression, calculating, cautious, like he was trying to figure out the best move in a high-stakes game. Son, he said, using that smooth, business-like tone he always used in boardrooms, clearly, we've underestimated you, but now that we see what you've built, we should work together. Let's merge your holdings with the firm and combine our resources. I didn't even hesitate. No. That one word seemed to freeze the air. It was quiet for a second, like no one could believe what I just said. What do you mean, no? Amanda asked, her voice full of disbelief. I mean no, I repeated calmly. I'm not interested in a merger, I'm not interested in a partnership, and I'm definitely not interested in any plan you're already cooking up to take over everything I've worked for. We're family, Mom said, trying to soften the moment. Her voice was pleading. I gave a short laugh. Family? Yesterday, I was the son you had to explain away at cocktail parties. The disappointment. Today, I'm family because I have something you want. I pulled up a document and held it up to the camera. This is the schedule for the Carson building. The lease for Kingston Investment Partners expires in 60 days. I won't be renewing it. You can't do that, Michael shouted, standing up. That building has been our headquarters for 20 years. Actually, I can, I said, and I already have. Consider it a reminder of what happens when you judge someone based only on appearances. I glanced at my watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the mayor about the downtown revitalization project. A real meeting, in person. James, wait, Dad started, but I was already pressing the disconnect button. Oh, and Michael, I added before ending the call, clean out your office by the end of the month. Some of us invisible people might need to mop the floors. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, finally exhaling a long, steady breath. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Sir, the mayor's office is on line 1. I straightened my tie, not a cheap one this time. I smiled. Put him through. And Sarah, send a gift basket to the maintenance team at the Carson building. They're about to deal with some very angry neighbors. As I picked up the phone, my eyes landed on the old photo on my desk. It was taken years ago, me, holding a mop with a crooked name tag, fresh on my first shift as a maintenance worker. The man who took that photo had become my first mentor. He taught me how buildings really worked and how people were the foundation of everything, not money, not image, not legacy. He once told me, you have to look up from the ground floor to see how high you can really build. And I had built higher than any of them ever thought I could. And I was just getting started. The next couple of weeks went exactly how I thought they would. My family didn't take the loss gracefully. Instead of stepping back, they tried to discredit me. Rumors started floating around high-end clubs and private parties. Whispers about how I must have cheated or done something shady to build my fortune. After all, how could a janitor turn into a billionaire? They didn't think it was possible without shortcuts or corruption. One afternoon, I was going over some acquisition proposals in my office when Sarah burst in. Your sister's here, she said. She doesn't have an appointment. I checked the camera feed. Amanda stood in the lobby, clutching her designer handbag like it was a lifeline. Visibly uncomfortable surrounded by the maintenance staff I allowed to use the first-floor cafe. Send her up. When she entered my office, she paused. Her eyes widened as she looked around. I could tell she was expecting something modest, maybe even shabby, but instead, she saw floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek design, and a space that likely made her firm's office look small. Nice view, she said, trying to act casual, though the furniture's a bit minimal. I looked at my simple desk, one that looked just like the one my first maintenance supervisor used. What do you want, Amanda? She opened a folder. I've been reviewing old family documents. As the oldest, I technically have a claim. Stop, I said, raising my hand. The trusts Dad set up when we were kids. I sold my share 5 years ago. I used that money to buy my first property. You can't claim what I no longer own. Her face dropped, but that was only 2 million. Yes, I said, and look what I've built with it. When you know the true value of things, you can turn even small seeds into an entire forest. That's not fair, she snapped. We didn't even know you were capable of this. And that's the problem, I said quietly. I walked to the window. How's Michael handling the move? She hesitated. He's not taking it well, Dad, too. That building meant something to them. No, I said, that building was just their comfort zone. What they really hate is losing control. They sent me to offer you a deal, she admitted. Of course they did. Let me guess, they'll stop the rumors if I lease them back their office? She didn't reply, but I didn't need her to. Here's what's going to happen instead, I said. You'll go back and tell them their threats are useless. Then, next week, you'll watch me acquire the Wilson portfolio, the same one Michael's been chasing for 2 years. Her eyes widened. How do you even know about that? I smiled. Because I own the building where your firm holds its private board meetings, and unlike you, I talk to the maintenance staff. They hear everything. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from my head of security. Michael Kingston attempting to access lower-level archives. Right on time. Excuse me, I said. Our other brother just broke into my building. Want to come see? We took the private elevator to the lower level. When the doors opened, we saw Michael being held by 2 security guards, both former janitors I had promoted. Looking for something? I asked calmly. Michael was red-faced. You must have hidden something. No one builds an empire this fast without. Without what? I said. Without hard work, without understanding buildings from the ground up, without treating people with dignity. I gestured to the guards. These men used to clean toilets beside me. Now they run security, because I gave them a chance. Amanda stepped forward. James, you've made your point. What do you want from us? Nothing, I said. I don't want anything from you. That's what none of you ever understood. I built this company by choice, not because I had to. I worked maintenance by choice, not because I failed. I turned to the guards. Escort my brother out. And Michael, next time you try to break in, I'll press charges, family or not. That night, I got an email from Dad. Son, your mother and I have been reflecting. Maybe we were wrong about your choices. The firm is struggling. The Carson building meant more than we realized. And your recent acquisitions, well, we clearly don't understand today's market. I'd like to have dinner, just the 2 of us. No deals, no pressure, just a father trying to understand his son. I stared at the message for a long time, thought about all the times I was ignored, talked over, or looked down on, but I also saw something new in his words, a quiet acknowledgement, a door finally opening. I wrote back. Dinner is fine, but not at La Maison. Meet me at Joe's Diner on 4th Street, the place the night crew eats. If you want to understand me, start by understanding them. Come alone. No Amanda, no Michael, no games. James. The next evening, I sat in my usual booth, sipping coffee. The bell above the door rang. Dad stepped in, his suit clearly out of place in the modest diner. He looked around at the regulars, cleaners, guards, repairmen. He sat across from me, visibly uncomfortable. This is where I learned real estate, I said, not from the firm, not from business school, here, talking to the people who make buildings work. The waitress walked over, Maria, whose daughter I'd helped send to college. The usual, James? She asked warmly. Thanks, Maria. How's Jessica? Top of her class, she beamed. The books you sent helped so much. After she walked away, Dad looked at me. You know everyone's names, their stories. That's why I've succeeded, I said, because I see people, not just profit. He looked around the diner, this time with new eyes. Teach me, he said softly. Tomorrow, 5 a.m., meet me at the Carson building, wear comfortable shoes. For what? We're joining the maintenance crew. That's where my journey began. As we finished, Maria placed dessert on the table. Add his to my tab, Dad said. No need, Maria smiled. James owns the diner, has for 3 years. Dad set down his fork, finally understanding. I hadn't just built buildings. I'd built trust, community, purpose. I'm sorry, he said. I know, I replied, that's why tomorrow, we begin again, with open eyes. As we left the diner, Dad looked up at the skyline. My skyline, I thought. You know, he said, I never really looked up before. I smiled. Sometimes, you have to start at the bottom, to understand the view from the top.